Well, good afternoon, Holy Trinity. This is Pastor Daniel coming to you once more for a stewardship video. Now, this year's stewardship video is going to be a little different than last year's video and the year before that. Both of those years, I had 3 videos that I published, and each video tended to range from about 30 minutes to almost 45 minutes, which was a significant amount of content that I was asking people to watch simply for stewardship. And this year I've decided to condense all of that content and make it a little bit easier. And so this year it's only going to be one video. And I've tried to compress the content from the previous videos. If you remember, I always did a video on the numbers with a PowerPoint presentation and a big explanation of the financials and the numbers of the church. Then I would do a video about giving thanks and a video about the blessings that we've received. This year, I'm going to attempt to consolidate that into one particular video, this video, with a streamlined presentation about the financials and the numbers, and then building it all into one video that hopefully will be a lot easier to watch and also convey the same amount of information just in a condensed format. So without any further ado, let's simply dive in because the clock is now ticking as I hope to be able to finish this video in about a half hour. But here we go. Now that I've welcomed everyone and I've done the explanation of how this video is going to work, I'd like to start this video, instead of diving into the numbers just yet, I wanted to start this video talking about the blessings. We have had an incredible 2022 year thus far. When I think back of all the wonderful things that has happened this particular year, I want to highlight just a couple of the larger, more impactful events. But keep in mind, there were so many that came to mind. I just simply couldn't recall all of them because that video would end up taking 45 minutes. But then when I think back earlier this year, I think back to when we hired Ann Punch as our new church administrator and the impact that she has had on the church office and streamlining certain processes within the office, and also inviting the office into new territory and really revolutionizing how the church office operates from an administrative perspective. That she has been a tremendous blessing to us. And then not too long after we hired her, we engaged in a new contract with an IT service provider and a new telephone provider. And both of those combined has again allowed the church office to operate from a technology standpoint with much more ease, much more efficiency, and more productivity. Our new phone system that we debuted this year has allowed many more people to leave messages. We have individual mailboxes for the staff and also a direct line now to pastoral care and pastoral emergencies. And so this, again, has been a tremendous blessing that we have been able to enjoy this past year. Then, if you remember, it almost seems like a long time ago, but this was the start of our Sunday school. We hired Olivia Garthwaite to be our new Sunday school coordinator. And she has been able to host Sunday schools on a regular basis every single Sunday, which has been able and allowed us to begin to grow and take those first steps in enhancing our children's program and our Sunday school program. That is something that began in 2022. Then you may recall something else that feels like ancient history now. It was Palm Sunday this year when we saw the return of the chalice in worship. And that was a big deal because that was the last of the COVID protocols to finally fall. And when it did, it basically signaled that we had officially moved on from all and any COVID restrictions. Worship was back to normal. All of our meetings were back to normal. Our social gatherings began to kick up. And so that was, I think, a pivotal moment and something that we can give thanks that that from a restriction perspective, COVID was now behind us. But then shortly after that, we had Pentecost Sunday, and Pentecost Sunday saw the start of Jeremy Silverman, our new director of music. And with that, Jeremy brought with him a new energy and vibrance to our music program here at Holy Trinity. And we have certainly seen that evident at our 10 a.m. services with the growth of the choir. But then, this year has seen many, many events that have been able to take place on campus. We had the return of our hot breakfast. Remember, we hosted the Florida Symphonic Winds, and we had a major concert here in our sanctuary. We had Shrove Tuesday. And remember back, we used to do Shrove Tuesday pancakes and chili, but we separated those two events. And then we were able to focus solely on Shrove Tuesday. And we did like a pancake and Mardi Gras celebration. It was a wonderful event in the life of this church. We had our fall kickoff and ministry fair, which was highly successful, and the kickoff of Realm, which is the new church software that we'll be utilizing for church membership. We hosted Bishop Sharf at his very first bishop's visit, and it was a wonderful celebration of his new and upcoming ministry as our diocesan bishop. But we were able to receive him with grace and the warmth of Holy Trinity, and be able to be the first place he did his very first bishop's visit. Shortly after that, and very recently, we had our brand new All Saints service and chili cook-off. A wonderful time of worship, and got tremendous feedback about the All Saints service. And then the chili cook-off was just an absolutely amazing and successful event. A lot of fun, a lot of fellowship, and the chilies that showed up were absolutely delicious. I almost can't wait until next year's event. This one was so good. But then we've seen other things. The return of Christian formation through coffee with the clergy was something that was a long time coming, but now has finally returned into the regular life of this parish. Another thing, not to be understated in any way, shape, or form, is the blessing of our outreach efforts and our outreach committee. Outreach is booming at this church. We have been able to maintain all of the wonderful things that we have done in the past, all the local organizations that we have supported, both with our collection, all of the food and things that we gather for all the local food banks and things on a regular basis on Sunday mornings, our Thanksgiving ask, our Christmas gatherings, but also financially, how we continued our deep financial support for all the other nonprofits in our community that we have supported over the years. We've continued to do all of that, and then build upon that with all of these new and wonderful programs and initiatives that we are engaging with Sandy Lane Elementary, the Backpack Project. Supplying the entire student body and teachers with backpacks and supplies for the years. A monumental undertaking and successful endeavor through our outreach programs. And then finally, Laundry Love, a ministry that is booming and growing every single month when we do it, that is gaining popularity, that people are talking about, and probably soon additional churches are going to join us so we can continue to expand our Laundry Love outreach program. All these things are wonderful blessings that we have received through God this year. But probably last, but certainly not least, was our new roof. This was a significant undertaking where we went through a big bid process, a vetting process, a learning process, and then finally selecting a contractor, getting on their calendar, and then having our aged metal roof replaced with a brand new standing seam roof. I mean, this was no small task. It took almost 2 months to complete. The total cost of the roof and new gutters that needed to be installed was over $320,000. And here is the blessing within the blessing. We were able to do all of this without a loan, without borrowing money. We happened to have reserve funds that we were able to pull from and fully fund our new roof project. This was a significant blessing that not only we were able to receive this year in 2022, but that will continue to serve this church for hopefully 20, 30, 40, 50 years to come, where we won't have to deal with an aged roof for a very long time. You know, these are just some of the many blessings that we've been able to receive this year and enjoy. I think we could continue to go on and talk about all the wonderful little blessings that were happening throughout the year. But at the end of the day, I just want to give thanks. I want to give thanks to the members of this church that have been faithful with their time, talent, and their treasures to be able to support Holy Trinity and allow us to be impactful to the lives of the members of this church, but probably more importantly, to the lives of those outside this church and within our community. So I say thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you to those that have joined us throughout the year, who have seen Holy Trinity, tried us out, and realized what wonderful things God is doing through us in His community, and has also joined us. And as they join us, they have joined with their time, talent, and treasure, and continued to help us move forward with ministry here at Holy Trinity. I say thank you to all those who have joined us from the bottom of my heart. But above all, I say thank you to God. I mean, God has been gracious. God has been faithful to this community. God has blessed this place, you know, like that parable of the talents. You know, if you've been faithful with a little, I will give you more. And I feel like that is what God is doing here at Holy Trinity. We have been faithful to the blessings that God has given us, and through that, God is beginning to entrust us with all the more. And so I just want to say thank you to everyone for your faithfulness. You know, as God has blessed us and with grace, the people of this church have responded with wonderful faithfulness. So thank you to everyone who has been able to support this church this past year. But you know, within that, we're starting to see new growth. But before we get to growth, I want to talk about something that I mentioned in my letter out to the congregation, which was I think we've reached a point of a new baseline. You know, when I first came to Holy Trinity, I think in my mind, I thought it would take about a year and a half to kind of allow the church to settle from the transition period and allow myself and the new leadership of the church to kind of get grounded and achieve a new baseline. You know, a new baseline in leadership, a new baseline in programming, a new baseline in worship, outreach, you name it. I think it was going to take about a year and a half to us to arrive at this baseline. So then from that baseline would spring, you know, new growth, new initiatives, new programming, and so on. But then COVID hit 5 weeks after I arrived. And in many ways, it delayed a lot of that work. Some of that work we were able to do during our shutdown time and during our COVID time. But in reality, we were delayed about a year. And so we've spent the latter part of 2021 and most of 2022, I think, really doing that work to return and develop a new baseline for this church. And it just feels like this past fall, I think we arrived at that new baseline. And I say that because I think we've kind of reached, you know, to coin the phrase, to requote the phrase, you know, the new normal. I think we've reached kind of a new baseline and a new normal here at Holy Trinity, which will be, I'm prayerfully and hopeful that this will be the springboard of a lot of new initiatives and new programming to come. And we're seeing the signs of that. We're seeing the signs and little seeds of church growth. First and foremost, we're seeing it in outreach, and I've already alluded to that. Outreach is already begun a growth. Outreach is already sprinting new initiatives from itself, new and exciting things, new people stepping into outreach and contributing to this growth and programming through outreach. I mean, outreach, if anything, is leading the charge in the new growth at Holy Trinity. But then again, you look at Sunday morning. I'm seeing new faces on a regular basis. I mean, our 8 a.m. service recently in the fall has seen a surge in attendance, not to the likes that I've seen since I've been here, even back at my very first start. The 8 a.m. service is growing. The 10 a.m. service is growing. Lots of new faces coming in and out on Sunday morning, a sign of growth and growth to come. Our choir, is doubled in size. For those that attend the 10 a.m. service, you've noticed recently that the choir is double the size it was 6 months ago, which is an amazing and exciting accomplishment. But then we're also seeing one of the critical things that has to happen, which is new people in leadership. New folks that have joined the church are stepping forward and stepping into leadership roles and stepping into having their hand in the growth of this church, which is a critical thing necessary in order for this church to continue to grow. So those signs are there. And as I said in my letter, I really do think now that we've reached the new baseline and we're seeing these new signs, I truly believe that 2023 is going to be a year of growth, is going to be a year of expansion, as we're going to live into and build upon this new foundation that we have built here at Holy Trinity together. But with that opportunity of growth is also the opportunity to grow financially. So you're probably wondering, when are we going to get back to the stewardship part of this and the financial part of this? I mean, yes, as we grow, we're going to have to grow the financial base in order to support this growth and be able to financially support the growth, and have that financial base grow as this church continues to grow. So that's where I'm going to transition to my PowerPoint. The PowerPoint is going to be similar to those that have seen this in the past. I'm reusing some of the slides because they're foundational, and they're also really good information for those who may have joined the church this past year, and would like to have basically a quick tutorial on our church financials. But then I'll dive into some of the details towards the end. So let me bring this up real quick. Bear with me, and here we go. So here's the PowerPoint that I typically share during stewardship time. And I always ask the question, why pledge? I mean, why can't I just continue to give to the church on my own time and in my own way? Why the emphasis on pledging, which is the emphasis this time of year as we garner our pledge commitments for 2023? Why is church pledging so important to this church growth that I've alluded to? Well, put simply, pledging allows us to plan. Pledging equals a plan. This is a way that we develop our annual budget. Once we have the pledges set for the next year, it allows us to plan and to develop a financial budget that allows us to make certain projections for the next year, and changes, and then we can plan for growth, especially from a financial standpoint, on new initiatives and things that we need to do in the coming year. This represents basically our annual budget. When I talk about pledging, we're primarily talking about the operating funds of the church, the funds that support, the day-to-day operation of the church, which is our annual budget. Within this are the employee salaries and benefits. This is all the church staff. This is a significant chunk of our operating budget, is the employees and salaries and their benefits. But then the other big proportion is building and operations. I mean, the actual physical plant, the property itself, the buildings, their upkeep, all of our utilities, from water bill to sewer to internet to telephone, to the electricity, which is a significant bill every single month, powering the facilities, and then its upkeep and maintenance. All of that is a significant part of our operating funds. Then we got the administrative cost, all of our office costs, everything from supplies for the office to computers, software, a lot of our administrative fees that we have to pay. Those are all handled through the administrative section of our operating funds. Then we have our own church programming, all of our formational events, all of our fellowship events, worship and the costs associated with worship. All of these kinds of things that are church programming based are all part of our operating funds. And then, of course, our diocesan apportionment. The diocesan apportionment, for those that don't know, is our 10% required tithe that we have to pay back to our diocese. All the parishes in the church in our diocese are assessed 10% of their operational funds, and then that has to be paid back to the diocese, so that the diocese then has funds to which to operate itself under. And that diocesan apportionment ends up being a fair amount of money when you look at the total assessment that we have against our operation funds. But this basically outlines in a nutshell what our operating funds are, and this is how we develop our annual budget, which this ties it back, of course, to pledging, because if we know how much funding is coming in the next year, it allows us to appropriately budget our funds and pay all of these things that we've just talked about. This is a little bit of it's a pie graph of this year's current budget. Our total annual budget this year was $400,903. And what this little pie graph does is it breaks it down for you. So you can see 54% are salaries and benefits. This is always your biggest cost. Anyone who's run a business would know that your employee and benefits costs are always your biggest expenses. But then 30% is that buildings and operations. And then you've got the diocese, 10% goes to the diocese. And then programming and then administrative are respectively 3% each. So this is what our annual budget in a nutshell looks like for the year. And a note about expenses. Every year our expenses go up. As we all know, cost of living goes up. Inflation has affected costs. Therefore, salaries and benefits get more expensive every year. Insurance. Insurance is one of the largest thing, one of our bigger expenses that we have, and those costs go up every single year. Our electrical costs go up every single year, and particularly this year, just about everything, all the way down to paper towels that we buy for the church, increased in cost because of inflation. So our expenses have gone up significantly this year. So not only do we need to work on pledging to appropriately address church growth for the year and growing the church next year, but we also have to compensate for just the expenses going up on a year-to-year basis. So this brings me back to operating funds being primarily funded through our pledging. We have a variety of sources in which we pull from to constitute all of our operating funds, but the main source is pledging. This is where we derive our big chunk of our annual budget. And so this is why pledging is so important, is because it allows us to develop an annual budget to fund all of our operating funds, our increased costs, and then our projected growth for the next year. So how do we do this? How do we grow our operating funds? Well, it may seem a little on the surface here, but yeah, one way to increase our operating funds is to simply increase the amount people pay per their pledge. So, for instance, if I gave $2,000 last year to the church, then I can give $2,500 this year. I mean, that's an increase per pledge, per person's pledge. That would, of course, increase the total amount that we have going into our operating funds. And this is a graph, and I brought this graph back every single year so we can track where we've been. Now, the green bars here, all going all the way back to 2010, coming up to this year, the green bars represent the average worship attendance, or what they call ASA, average Sunday attendance. And as you can see, there's been a downward trend in attendance until 2019. Now, 2020, you can obviously see is significantly lower, and that was the year of the COVID shutdown. So this kind of marks when we shut down for COVID. But look what's happened since 2021. We saw kind of a return to baseline with attendance, but then look at 2022. I've already done some estimates of where we are so far this year, and we've seen an increase in attendance. But let's look at the yellow orange bars. I'm sorry, these are orange. The orange bars. This is the number of pledges. So a quick note on this. So these are what we call pledging units. So a pledging unit is usually a household, and a household can consist of one person, two people, and then families, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But one household is typically one pledging unit. So as you can see, the pledging units have kind of varied throughout the years, but the last years, starting at 2020, coming to today, have decreased slightly. And we're only talking like 2 or 3 pledging units per year a decrease. It's not a significant decrease, but the number of pledging units has decreased. However, now I want to draw your attention to the blue line. The blue line is the dollar amounts of the total pledge. So if we add up everyone's pledges, this is the total amount pledged from the congregation. And then as you can see, it started a downward trend starting in 2018 all the way to 2020. But look what happened in 2020. We have been on a nice, steady, sure increase since 2020 all the way to this year. And this is a good sign. And this is where I get to say thank you once again. Because basically what this means is the church has heard my kind of repeated call every year to increase exactly what we're talking about, to increase the amount per pledge. Because look at it. The total number of pledges has actually gone down over the last couple of years, but look at what happened to the total dollar pledged. It has gone up. This means that the church has responded to my call to increase the amount per pledge. It means every person that's pledging has made an active effort to increase their pledge year to year. And for that, I say thank you. That means the church has heard the call and has responded to the call. And this is simply y'all's faithfulness to increase your pledge every year since 2020. This is a tremendous accomplishment and tremendous blessing. And I would simply ask that we continue this trend of increasing our dollar amount per pledge. But this isn't the only way we can do it. We can also increase by the total number of pledges. Of course, that may seem self-explanatory, but this is one area we've been sliding a little bit. Ever since 2020, the actual total number of pledges has decreased slightly. Which if you look at 2022 here, average Sunday attendance is up. So what this means is our total number of pledges that we receive into the church should theoretically start to rise. And I think that's the biggest challenge that we have this year to the membership and the new membership of the church. is to prayerfully discern being a pledger, so that we can begin to increase the total number of pledges coming into the church, while also increasing the total amount per pledge at the same time. Because if both of these things happen, we would see a significant impact into the operating funds available for us to be used in 2023. So once again, we can increase the amount per pledge, and we can increase the number of total pledges into the church. But at the end of the day, I really want to underscore this, that every single pledge matters. Whether or not you can pledge a lot, whether or not you can pledge a little, one of the most important things about pledging is that every pledge matters. Even if you might feel like, well, my dollar amount is not very significant, so why do I need to pledge? I'll just put it in the plate on Sunday morning. No, the pledges matter because, again, they allow us to plan. And so regardless of how much you can give, please consider pledging, because that allows us to plan and allows us to know what might be coming in next year. And therefore, we can build a budget that's appropriate for the growth that we are foreseeing around the future. So just remember that. If you don't remember anything from this presentation, definitely remember that every pledge matters. Your pledge matters. And I thank you in advance for entertaining the notion to make a pledge to Holy Trinity. So once again, why pledge? Pledge equals plan. Pledging allows us to plan, and pledging allows us to make preparations for church growth and the anticipated growth that I truly think we're going to begin to see in 2023. But let me simply say this in conclusion. Please consider making a pledge to Holy Trinity in this coming year. If you've been a pledger in the past, then please consider to continue to pledge, and then consider increasing the pledge so we can continue to grow the operational base of this church. If you haven't pledged in the past, or maybe you're a newer member to the church, I invite you to consider being a pledger at Holy Trinity. I truly believe, and I am very excited that 2023, I think, is going to be a year of growth. We're going to see new faces into the church. We're going to see new initiatives kicked off, and I am truly excited about what I think is right around the corner for this church. But at the same time, even if the growth is happening and God is bringing us new people, we have to be faithful with what God has given us, and be good stewards of what God has given us, so we can honor and support the growth that I truly believe is coming. So please prayerfully discern a pledge for 2023. Prayerfully discern how you will use not just your treasure, but also your time and your talents over the next coming year. I mean, yes, we need the financial support to be able to continue to move forward and to grow Holy Trinity, but we also need time. We need volunteers. We need people to step up into leadership. We need more people to get involved with the church so that we can grow the programming of the church, which would then in turn allow us to handle all the new and wonderful people that God is going to bring us this next year, to invite them in and then invite them to become participants with their time, talent, and treasure. And you see, it just continues to go on as a cycle of growth for the coming years. So this is the video for stewardship this year. I hope our new condensed version is something that is received with joy and gladness. But at the end of the day, let us all give thanks to our Lord and Savior, who has blessed this congregation with so much, who has blessed the congregation with wonderful and faithful membership, who support this church with their time, talent, and treasure, and then bring us new people that we can love, welcome, and minister to, and then invite them to be part of this community, and then in turn empower them to be difference makers in the community around us. So thank you once again for watching this video, hopefully in its entirety. Thank you once again for supporting Holy Trinity. And thank you for being wonderful and faithful servants of this church, but not just this church, but for our Lord and Savior and God above. Blessings be with you, and I will see you soon. Bye-bye now.